Very good afternoon, friends, and thank you very much for joining in. My name is Ganesh from HDFC Securities. The much awaited Bharat Bonds ETF Series 2 has finally opened today, and we are very pleased to welcome each one of you for this very exclusive chat with Ms. Radhika Gupta, MD and CEO for Edelweiss AMC, who's managing this issue, and Mr. Deepak Jisani, who's the head of retail research for HDFC Securities. So with that thought, over to you, Deepak bhai.
Yeah. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. Now we will try to know more about the product, the bond ETF, and why it is suitable for retailers and HNIs. What are its unique points that one should look at? And Ms. Gupta is here to take us through all this. So now, Ms. Gupta, this is the second series of bond ETF. The first series was quite a hit, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you, Deepak bhai, and everybody at the team of HDFC Securities for having me. You're right. I think we are very happy to bring the second series to market. I think the original one did very well, and I think the fact that it did well is perhaps reflected in that more and more investors came even after the NFO. People have been happy with their experience of returns. They've been happy with liquidity. These are things we can talk about. Or jo 12,000 crore ka, what we started at 12,000 crores is almost 14,500 crores now. So I think that's a sign that the first tranche did well, and the second one is, hopefully going to get an equally warm reception.
Sure. So now let us go to, we will talk mostly about the retail and the HNI guys, because the mutual funds and all don't need this kind of briefing. So for retailers and HNIs, what are the unique points that the bond ETF offers vis-a-vis the other fixed income products?
I think, Deepak, when you look at fixed income, and when a retail and HNI looks at fixed income, and fixed income is a topic on which there has been so much discussion in the last few years, I think there are 2-3 things that we seek from our fixed income investments. One is a high degree of safety. We know that when we are doing fixed income, safety is very important to us because we take risk in equities. And I think this product is a safety first product. It brings a basket of AAA rated central public sector enterprises. These are companies owned and managed, and I would highlight owned and managed by the government of India. And it was only AAA rated enterprises. So I think the safety of fixed income is the first aspect. The second thing I think that people look for in fixed income investing is what I call predictability of return. When you go to a bank and you do an FD, you want to know that in 3 years, if I do an FD, what rate of return will I get? You don't want to be subject to RBI is cutting rates, RBI is this, you have your goals and you want to meet these goals. I think this instrument offers predictability of return. It is a maturity structure. There are multiple series that come out and they mature. One matures in 2025, one matures in 2031. This means that if you invest in the 2025, the indicative yield that is on bharatbond.in, you are likely to realize. So if you are a hold to maturity investor, this gives you that kind of experience of predictable return regardless of what happens to interest rates. And I think the third thing that it gives you is complete liquidity and tax efficiency that comes with the MF platform. So these 3 things packaged into a single product at very low cost.
Sure. So now by tax efficiency, I think you mean that we get indexation benefit in case you hold on for more than 3 years. So effective tax rate will be much lower than what you would normally pay on a fixed income instrument. So that is a unique advantage that this is offering. Now, vis-a-vis the debt mutual funds also, this has some unique features. So can we talk about that?
Yeah, so I think, and I'll also come to the taxation part that you touched on, but I think in debt mutual funds, firstly, there's a whole range of debt mutual funds. I think there are a few unique features versus debt mutual funds. Debt mutual funds are actively managed. So there is fund manager discretion. This is an ETF. So the mandate is AAA rated central public sector enterprises. We cannot do anything outside of that. I also run a mutual fund business, but in that the mandates are a lot more flexible. So I can hold AA, I can do this, I can do that. So here it's very well defined. Secondly, most debt mutual fund products don't have this target maturity structure. There is some amount of duration risk. Jab aap koi banking PSU fund or any of these kind of things. they have some amount of duration. So this gives you that certainty of return. And I think thirdly, from a cost point of view, this is definitely cheaper at 0.005 basis points. This is definitely cheaper than any, I mean, it is the cheapest debt product in the world actually, in terms of fund offering.
Sure. So the normal expense ratio in a debt fund would vary between 30 basis point to about 60-70 basis points. So vis-a-vis that, 0.005% is virtually nothing in a sense for the investor. It's a great deal for them. So they get almost the entire thing that is being earned at the fund level. Now, we have a target of some 2,000 crores plus 6,000 crores of oversubscription and 1,000 crores and 5,000 crores in the second 5-year and 11-year respectively. Even in the earlier series, we had managed quite a good amount of subscription, and this time also we are quite confident of sort of getting close to the upper end of the target, right?
So this is the hardest question, Deepak bhai, that you have asked me. I don't know where the collections will stack up. I mean, this is a lockdown environment. So we are hoping that we will hit 8 to 10,000 crores and move towards the upper end. I think what is actually more important to me is that people's experience is good and that whatever we launch with, the AUM grows. I was most happy that 12,000 crores on launch didn't diminish. It became 14,000 crores. In fact, I must tell audiences one thing. When we launched 2 tranches in the first season, 2023 and 2030. Now, 2030 was a 10-year product, so people were very suspicious. Who's going to give 10-year money and debt, etc. This is not going to happen. And 2030 actually raised less money. It raised 4 or 5,000 crores. 2023 raised 7,000 crores. If you look at where we are today, a lot of people shifted from 2023 to 2030. So 2023 is now about 5,000 crores. 2030 is almost a 10,000 crore product. And in a country like ours, where there is hardly any long-term debt money, I think that is the biggest victory. So I'm hoping that the tranche does well and more people come in after. I mean, our vision is that Bharat Bond becomes a 1 lakh crore program.
Sure. So now I think, yeah. So the kind of companies that this fund is going to invest in is, I think, Power Finance Corporation, REC, Power Grid Corporation, National Housing Bank, Indian Oil Corporation, NABARD, HPCL, Exim Bank, National Highway Authorities, IRFC, NTPC, NHPC. So all PSU blue chips. From that perspective, as you mentioned, AAA, nothing much to worry as of now. There is a single company exposure of not more than 15%. So that is another prudential limit that you will follow. There will be a quarterly review also in case you want to sort of change the weights. And you will typically follow the NSE's index, the bond index, which is made, which will be specially made for this, right?
Yes, that's absolutely right. Because it is an ETF, each ETF has to have an index. So for each of the things, 2023, 25, 31, there's an index. NSE launched the indices for these products about a week ago. You can see them on the NSE website. As you said, what is an index or an ETF? It's basically a way to follow a set of rules. And those rules define what the portfolio can do and what cannot. Those rules are that the company has to be a central public sector enterprise. It has to be rated AAA. If it's not AAA, it gets knocked out of the index. And basis that you create this index, the index has this 15% cap. And the bigger borrowers get larger weight. So PFC, REC are larger borrowers. They have larger bond issuances. They are more liquid, so they get more weight. I would also tell you that since you mentioned the names of the borrowers, I mean, these are really the Maharatnas and Navratnas, but more and more borrowers are coming forth to participate in this program. And I should share why. Borrowers are very excited about this because in the past, borrowers have not had the opportunity to raise money from our HNI and retail investors. They have largely raised money from institutions. So they look at it as an easy way to access the retail and HNI market. And not only is it cost efficient for a retail investor, the product, it's cost efficient for a borrower. Actually, agar ek borrower ko aaj ki tarikh mein, if he has to do a public issue, it costs him a lot of money. So this time we've had more borrowers also participate in the program than last time.
Sure. Now, does the investor expect any kind of payouts in the interim period at all or no?
No, we don't do payouts, but people ask me this payout question. So we don't do payouts. See, we get coupons from these borrowers. We reinvest them into the same companies. The reason we don't do payouts is that it is very tax inefficient to do a payout. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. However, I'll give you an option. Some people want to use this instrument for regular income. Recall that with the ETF, we are also launching the fund of funds vehicle where you don't need the demat account. You can use that and do something like an SWP. You can also do a proportional redemption of the amount if there are gains. So there are two ways that you can do that.
Sure. And I think there is an FMP kind of investments available in a regular mutual fund. This is also a bit similar, but there is a difference there between the two. So can you just elaborate on that?
Yes, actually, the FMP structure was very popular in a mutual fund, and in some sense, this is inspired by that structure. Now, how is it different from an FMP structure? I think 2-3 things. One is in an FMP structure, it's actively managed, so there is no defined mandate. Now, FMP can hold AA, AAA, whatever. It doesn't have to be CPSE. Here, the universe is very clear. Secondly, an FMP structure is closed-ended while they are listed on the exchanges. I mean, it's hard to exit. Here, and I can answer more questions about liquidity. Liquidity is there. You can enter and exit any day, and liquidity conditions are good. Also, even an FMP will probably be priced at 20-30 basis points. So it's more cost effective versus an FMP. It is trying to take what you like about the FMP and move it to open-ended format.
Yeah, so it has the best of both worlds in a sense. Right.
Yeah, the structure is that of an FMP. What people like about the FMP was to buy bonds and hold them till maturity. That is replicated here.
Sure. And then there is liquidity available in the market. Whenever you think you want to get out due to whatever reason, you can just sell and move out. So typically, I think the daily volumes of the existing series are about 1.3 crores for the 3-year one and about 2.5 crores for the 10-year one. So there is enough liquidity available. And in case you have invested higher amounts, then you can directly go to the AMC and sort of either create unit or extinguish the units, right?
In fact, I'll just comment on the liquidity statistics. The volumes are higher than what you've noted. The last I pulled from the exchange, in each of the series, the volumes are between 4 and 5 crores each, which is actually quite good now. After March, after some of the sort of credit crisis, this number has only gone up. So the volume numbers are closer to 8 to 9 crores, especially in 2031. And if you have a large, so if someone is doing a 5 crore redemption or a 6 crore redemption, it is happening on the exchange. The bid ask that the exchange told me has been between 5 to 10 basis points on NSE. So that's also not bad, nothing to worry about. If there's a large investor at 25 crores plus, they can come to us. I must tell you that in this period, we have honored very large single day redemptions and subscriptions. We've had 500, 700 crores kind of subscriptions and redemptions come to us from corporates that we've been able to conveniently handle. So that gives you a sense of the liquidity profile of the product.
Sure. Now, there is also another fixed income instrument available, tax-free bonds. So how is this better than or different from tax-free bonds? Because those are also issued by the same corporates.
Yeah, and that's very important because you are looking at bonds issued by the same corporates. It's a very popular product. Now, we did the comparison of 5-year and 10-year tax-free bonds with this. In 5-year, as I last checked, and this is in our presentations, after tax, Bharat bond is about 0.5% better than tax-free bond of 5-year. And in the 10-year space, Bharat bond is about 1% better than the tax-free bond of the same thing, with, I would say, better liquidity. So versus tax-free bonds, you are better off. Versus FD also, I will say the spread after tax for full tax investors is about 1% over FD.
Right. So basically, for people in the highest tax bracket, I think this is a very good instrument to consider and to look at investing. Now you mentioned about liquidity. So you also have market makers. So can you just elaborate on that? What are the duties and when will they come in?
Yeah. So it is very important to have market makers because someone needs to be there. See, large investors above 25 crores come to the AMC, but everyone else is on the exchange. Now, who is going to be buying and selling these units? A market maker is basically an intermediary who sits in between the investor and the AMC. If there are a lot of investors wanting to buy the bonds, then the market maker will buy the bond ETFs from the AMC and sell it to those investors. If there are people wanting to sell the bonds, then the market maker will do the reverse. Its job is to stand in the middle and it makes some spread for doing this. We appointed a number of market makers, including JM and Edelweiss and Trust Capital last time. And we intend to appoint, JM, Edelweiss, and maybe one or two others for this issue as well. The appointment process has already been done. And I think the market makers have done a good job. This bid-ask spread that I said of 5-10 basis points has been maintained by the market maker. And we are only going to expand the net of market makers over time. But market makers play a very important role in making sure that when you want to sell, they can. And they're obligated to keep a certain amount of bonds with them so that if buyers want to buy it, then there's a stock available.
Sure. Now the first series has given very attractive absolute returns so far. I think the returns are quite healthy, about 7.8% for the 3-year and 10.2% for the 10-year. This is just for the 6 months or 7 months from December till date. Now this is aided by the interest rate cuts and the flight to safety. Now you think going forward also there is scope for interest rates to fall, or is there a risk of interest rates rising in between?
See, I think one has to be prepared for both outcomes. As you very correctly said, the returns of the first tranche look good. When we launched the first tranche, the 2023 was at 6.5 and the 2030 was at 7.5. So the rates were great. And if the investors stay for that holding period, they will get 6.5 and 7.5. Now, today their return looks very good because of the mark to market that has come in because interest rates have fallen. That kind of fall in interest rates, questionable whether you will get that. However, we did some scenario analysis, which I must tell you, if interest rates rose 25 basis points, 50 basis points, 75 basis points, over a 3-year period, even if interest rates rose 75 basis points, on the 5-year, for instance, the impact is not very large. I mean, you'll see it in the presentations on bharatbond.in, but the impact on a compounded basis is not more than 30-40 basis points. On a 5-year basis, it's even shorter. So whether if interest rates go down, you'll get a short-term gain and everybody will be very happy. But even if over 3 years they go up by 75 basis points, the numbers don't look so bad. You should just be prepared a little bit for that volatility. And if you're a hold to maturity investor, none of this should matter.
Sure. And now, is there an opportunity for traders to sort of buy and sell bond ETFs? Because if they have a view on the interest rate movements, can they sort of benefit out of it?
Yes, they can. I mean, while it is meant to be a hold to maturity product, of course, traders have taken advantage of it. If you are looking to play duration, then there are a few ways to do this. One, there are 2-3 interesting things from a spread point of view. One is that if you look at the yield curve in India, rates have come down, but they've come down more sharply in the 1 to 3 year spread segment, which is why we didn't launch a 3-year. In the 5-year segment, there's about a 50-60 basis point increase versus 3-year. So that is something to think about in terms of opportunity. Also, the rate at which PSU bonds are trading versus GSEC bonds, which is Government of India, is at historical highs, about 80 basis points. So if you believe any of these rates will come down, then there may be an opportunity for traders. If you're looking to take a view on duration, then maybe the longer term series makes more sense.
Yeah. So if you are a smart trader or a clued on trader, maybe there is an opportunity for you as well in this series, right? Okay. Now I think we have broadly covered most of the things. Before we go to the Q&A, if you want, you can add a few things, Ms. Gupta.
No, so I think if you look at Bharat Bond, I mean, in very simple terms, people ask me what is Bharat Bond. I think it's a product that combines, in simple terms, the features of 4 products that you're familiar with. It behaves like a bond. It matures, it has a finite maturity date, it's full to maturity in nature. But when you invest in a bond, it's not diversified. If you were to buy NHAI, you just buy NHAI. So it is diversified like a mutual fund with the tax treatment of a mutual fund. However, like a stock, it trades on the exchange, it's extremely liquid. And fourth, it has the cost structure of an ETF. So I really believe it's a all-weather debt product that you should consider for your debt allocation. And recall, our vision is that it's not one Bharat Bond. When the FM launched this, she said it's a program. So we will have these series. Now you have 4 Bharat Bonds. You have 2023, 5, 30, 31. Hopefully this whole ladder will be filled in the next few years. And as an investor, what you can do is, if you have a 3-year goal, you can do the 3-year one. If you have a 5-year goal, you can do the 5-year one. So you can build what they call the laddered portfolio with all your needs, and they'll just keep maturing year by year. So I think it's a very useful product once you understand it and start putting it into your debt portfolio. And it's a very simple product that focuses on safety and liquidity with some post-tax return.
Thank you for that clarity. I think most of the sort of issues or doubts people had would have been cleared by now. Now let us look at some questions that we have from the participants. Whatever is already covered, I think we will not take them. Is the Bharat Bond issue, will it be awarded on first come first serve basis if it is oversubscribed? Somebody has asked, Mr. Rajaram.
It's pro rata. It's not first come first serve. It's pro rata.
Right.
Yeah. But retail has a 25% cap. Retail has a 25% reservation. Then the rest is non-retail. And if there is an oversubscription, first you'll fill the retail quota, then you'll give it to everybody else, because there is a preference the government will always want to give to retail investors.
Sure. What about NRIs? Can they apply? Mr. Amol has asked.
Yes, they can. Through their NRE demat account, NRE or NRO, they can apply in the ETF. And if they are mutual fund investors, they can apply in the fund of funds. So yes, absolutely open to NRIs. US is okay. Canada is the only one that's a problem.
Sure. Mr. Rajaram, another question is, will the ETF invest in secured or unsecured bonds?
It is PSU bonds, and PSU bonds are almost always unsecured.
They are unsecured,
PSUs
but
don't issue secure bonds.
Okay, but they are backed by the government, so typically one can assume that they are as good as secured. Although things can change, but as of now, right. Is this issue eligible for collateral or pledges for various purposes?
Yes, this is a marginable instrument with the exchange. Now, what the haircuts and all are, you can check, but it can be used for margin with the exchange. It is also repoable under RBI guidelines, under corporate bond repo.
Sure. Any upper limit for investment by NRIs? Mr. Mohan Kumar has asked.
No, there's no upper limit for investment. If you're applying in the retail quota, you're capped at 2 lakhs, but other than that, there is no cap. In the normal quota, there is no cap.
Sure. Now, Mr. Jashan Singh has asked that in case some of these PSUs get divested and the government's holding comes below 50%, then what happens to these holdings?
Okay, so this is a very good question. Actually, I didn't cover it, but let me cover it now. Privatization is one question. Now, 2-3 points I'll make on privatization. The same ministry that runs Bharat Bond, which is Department of Investment and Public Asset Management, or DPAM, is also the one that covers disinvestment. So any candidates that are likely to be up for disinvestment, we don't include in Bharat Bond. For instance, a BPCL is not intentionally included. If something comes up for disinvestment, once it receives cabinet approval for disinvestment, we will then exclude it from the index and exclude it from Bharat Bond. I must tell you, knowing the disinvestment process, that between cabinet approval and actual disinvestment takes 12 to 18 months, sometimes 2 years. I mean, Air India is still not done. So that's not something to worry about. You have adequate time to do that. And usually disinvestment happens in stronger hands.
Yeah, but in case the divestment happens, then
I'm just charging a laptop.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So in case divestment happens, then you will have to sort of sell those bonds and go for some other bonds. You'll have to replace them, right? Before the divestment actually happens.
Yeah. So well before. So as I said, when there is cabinet approval for the divestment, which is typically once cabinet approval is received, then the divestment process starts. So you'll have about 15 to 18 months of time to actually get this done. So you'll do it on the point of cabinet approval.
Sure. Now somebody has wanted to see a PPT presentation, but I think it is already available on the website. So one can go and access that from the website.
There is a lot of material, I would just say, on the website. It's bharatbond.in. I'm sure your HDFC Securities website also has a lot of information. There are PPTs, there are index tax calculators, there's information on past issuances, there's comparisons versus tax-free. There's a wealth of information if you need it. So please, feel free to take a look at that. It's bharatbond.in.
Yeah, we at HDFC Securities have also come out with a note on the issue. So that is also quite exhaustive. People can go through that. And in case they want, they can also look through the PPTs. I think are we expecting any listing gains? This is not an equity issue, right?
No, we're not expecting any listing gains. I guess the only thing I'll say is that the first two issues have both traded at a significant premium. The 10-year has always traded at a premium. I can't figure out why. The 3-year alternates between premium and discount, but no, this is not a listing gain play at all. Please separate it from equity.
Now, is stamp duty applicable? The latest provision of stamp duty, is that applicable here?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah, I think that covers most of the questions. Thanks a lot, Ms. Gupta, for coming here and explaining the features of the issue. I hope most of the participants would have got a good idea, fair idea about what is the issue about and how it is different or better than a lot of other alternatives already available in the market. And a lot of their queries are also resolved. I think so. Thank you and have a great week ahead.
Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for listening in.